I'm fresh off the cyber battlefield, folks. Just got done dealing with a ransomware attack at one of our clients. Lots of interesting information to talk about. It's the kind of video you can only get from facing an attacker and going through the experience, and it's fresh in my mind, so I'm putting all the notes in this video so that you could benefit without having to be attacked yourself. Coming up next.
Welcome to Tech Topics, brought to you by Cybervenger. We help keep small businesses stay protected and compliant with cutting-edge cybersecurity and IT solutions.
Okay, so it's exactly as it sounds. We just had a client that got breached. We did another video you just watched on the SonicWall side of the breach, how they got in. How they got in is actually fairly simple. They were able to break the credentials of a particular user. They weren't using two-factor on the firewall for the VPN. As you know, I always talk about two-factor being a really important security layer, and that would have stopped this attack before it ever happened. But there's a lot of good news, a lot of things we did right, a number of things we did wrong, and we're going to talk about each of them and the things that you could maybe do in your own environment, things we're going to try and do, as well as some philosophical dealing with management kind of, strategies. This is not all technical. A good chunk of this is lessons learned, business lessons learned, what happens in business, how things actually end up going versus where we think they're going to go, where our script says it's going to go. So first off, what happens? Give a quick idea. We have a customer that had a SSL VPN using SonicWall. They got compromised. They got in. One of the first lessons that we learned is that the SonicWall SSL VPN was back-ended by Active Directory, meaning the username and password to get into the VPN is exactly the same and always synced with their Active Directory user. This is very convenient. You change your password and at your desktop, you go home to VPN in, it's the same new password. That can kind of be good. There's a trade-off here. This is not a bad thing they did. This is the downside of a trade-off. Now, the upside of the trade-off would be that you only have to have one password. You don't write it down, leave the piece of paper everywhere. I've seen that. You get your keyboard, it's all up under the keyboard, there's a little post-it note or just stuck to the monitor. I really hate those. So it helps avoid that sort of thing, less password resource and whatnot. But it does allow an attacker to break it once, use it many times. So the attacker got in after probably brute force, or it may have been the SonicWall cloud backup breach. We talked about that in the video. We don't actually know. We're going to say it's brute force for now. So that's plausible. And then they had also the Active Directory password. So from there, they could scan the network. Now, if they did get the backup files from that breach, SonicWall, what's happening there is that the attacker now has a map to work off. And this is incredibly important to deny the attacker. And if you are the attacker, incredibly important to get information, to get a map of how things are built. You want to know where the servers are, what networks are involved, where the backups are. That's a huge one. You can look at the SonicWall config to see if there's any future exploits against the NAT. So if you have a server, you got a web server inside, and using a NAT role to get to it, that's there, or maybe a phone system or an HVAC system or anything else. Now you know how that NAT works, what its inside IP address is. There's all kinds of useful information that a bad guy could exploit later, even if not immediately. So if you're someone who has a SonicWall, you might want to consider re-engineering around these sort of problems. So another thing that happened, something good. Here's something good that we did. The VPN had a different IP range. It wasn't just blended in with the same subnet. It was a completely separate network. That's how we figured out where it was coming from so quickly. The other good thing they were doing is they were running our MDR service on all the workstations and servers. Well, not all. We'll talk about that in a minute. There's two that they weren't running it on. And they had, our MDR service includes a SIM, very good logging, and 24-hour SOC, so Security Operations Center. So our folks and our team that we hire to respond to alerts at 3 o'clock in the morning, because guess when that happened? 3 o'clock in the morning. It's always overnight, right? Well, not always, but that's when it really struck us. They want to get it when the people are least able to respond. We had people ready to go, and they responded fast. Within an hour and a half, they'd lock down the whole network once they realized what level it was. You gotta be careful, false positive. You don't want to shut people down for nothing. The boy who cried wolf effect is real in security. You gotta make sure you avoid that. But they detected tools appearing in lateral movement of stuff going from point to point very quickly and started shutting things down and locking them out, which saved us a ton of repair time. So kudos to that team. Now, part of the problem what took them that long was the tools that were being used were off-the-shelf legitimate tools. WinRAR was being used to encrypt the data. WinRAR is a zip tool. 7-zip is another one I've seen in action in the wild. And you can run these tools for legitimate reason. Maybe there is a directory that's got confidential information that you want to zip up. It's an archive, but you want to put an extra layer of encryption on it. This is a good thing. Helps protect against, breaches of confidentiality. But in their case, they're locking out the data and attacking availability. And since it's a real tool, there's no good way to know. It's not a virus. There's no viruses involved in this. Our EDR would have picked it up. But instead, they picked up suspicious activity. And then they alerted a human team who was able to look at it and go, oh, okay, and with human level of judgment. And that's why that service is so important. That really saved the day, prevented further damage. But not before they did, in fact, get into 2 servers. So, background. The particular customer in question has an old ERP system that runs their business. And they've been trying to move off of it. They have a new ERP system that's got a year-old training data in it. They've been moving to it slowly. And that project keeps getting stalled. If I can get political for a second, not political, but philosophical for a second, you have customers sometimes that are always just about to revamp everything. Well, let's not bother upgrading. Let's not do these little things when we're about, it's like having a car. Why fix that rock chip in the paint? Why pull that dent if I'm just about to get rid of the car and get a new one? Right? The problem is, I think I mentioned this in the other video, sometimes the thing you're going to do next week ends up becoming the thing you're going to do next month. And the thing you're going to do next month ends up becoming the thing you're going to do next year. We've been in a holding pattern for, 7, 8 years with this client, and they're always just about to replace the server. And we've replaced other servers waiting for this, to happen. So there's a lot of things that were done differently than we would have liked, and we kind of let our customer get away with it. So it's a lesson for us. We're in IT, right? And IT's people, especially help desk folks that deal with customers, tend to be people pleasers. We want to see our customers happy. We want to work with them. We want to make things convenient for them. So maybe I didn't nag hard enough. That's a lesson learned right there when it comes to security. Don't wait for the future upgrade, and nag harder and more effectively, as much as we could do there. Obviously, we don't want to frustrate our customer, and we have to be mindful of what their budgets are and when they have money to do things. But it's a lesson learned. There's a lot of things we knew better that we didn't address, like 2-factor on the Sonic wall. It's like, well, we're about to rip everything out, and then we forgot about it. But they had their ERP system was running on 20-year-old operating systems. That's probably one of the reasons it was the first thing attacked. The host was a little newer, because it can handle it, but they're boxed in compatibility-wise, because they took so long to upgrade. Now, you can't just straight upgrade to the newest thing. They're still stuck. They're stuck at the 64-bit, 32-bit barrier. Their ERP won't run on 64-bit capable processors, so they're still running on old hardware. And the newest they can run is 2008 on Hyper-V, and their guest was 2003, because that's the only thing that the software will run on. And it's really challenging with an ERP or line of business software to move to another platform, because you have so much company inertia. Your business processes are built in it. Your your employee training, customer expectations. If God forbid there's a feature that you provide for your customers, like, oh, we can, set an automatic warning about invoices or automatic shipping delays alerts, and the new ERP doesn't do that, or we don't know how to do that yet. People really push back. So the nice thing about all this is, of course, is never let a good crisis go to waste, right? You better believe I'm going to be pushing for every change you wanted. So the customer or the attacker had a relatively flat network to go after. All of our management interfaces, so our Hyper-V, our Sonic Wall, our switches, UPSs, were in the same network as our servers and our workstations, phones, everything. So it's really easy for them to do a quick blanket scan. When you are being attacked in a cyber attack, time is of the essence. It's all about slowing the other guy down while speeding yourself up. And everything you can do ahead of time to do that is important. So if you have a complicated network, it's a pain to maintain, right, or set up. Not so much once you're used to it, really. It's really not that hard. But it requires some labor, some money, to build it or to move to that. But once you have that, it slows the bad guy down, because they don't know, they can't scan infinite numbers of subnets. They don't know what the other networks are, so they can't even try to connect to them. They have to try and blanket scan, and that slows them down a lot. They can't rely on picking up broadcast traffic as it's isolated. It also gives you a visibility. Logs are difficult to analyze. They're a big blob of a sea of data scrolling across the screen. You got to read it, and you get hundreds of pages. How fast can you read? Hundreds of pages of information, and you're looking for something to jump out at you to speed up your understanding. And if you have your networks broken up and you start seeing IP addresses like we did, we saw the VPN IP addresses, generating noise and connecting all kinds of machines they shouldn't all at once at 3 o'clock in the morning. That tipped off the SOC team. They knew what was going on by behavior. If we had the management on a different section as the servers, as a different section as the workstations, again, we would have been able to see what was going on better. So that's something I would recommend. That's a lesson learned. Break up your network more. Typically, when I design a network from scratch, that's what we do. This customer, again, had an existing network that we, weren't comfortable with ripping apart. We have bigger fish to fry, like a Windows 2003 server that we've been trying to replace for 10 years. And that's tricky there, too, because that might not be a cyber attack next time. It might be that the 15-year-old hardware might die. To make matters worse, their licensing for 2003 is OEM. So if the hardware ever dies, we legally can't run it. So now we got a legal compliance issue. And 2003 and 2003 R2 Microsoft was in an era where they were really, really aggressive. This is the age of Napster. They were very aggressive with copyright protection. So you often can't get a 2003 machine to run on another piece of hardware, no matter what you do, without engaging in some very crazy piracy-like stuff with hacking DLLs, and that's a security nightmare of itself and a legal nightmare. So that's not the kind of thing you want to have to get into. You really want to stay on your upgrades and keep things refreshed while you have the chance. But the customer had already ended its relationship with the ERP company. I don't know if they went out of business or if their support renewals were just ungodly expensive. Something happened. And I think they eventually did go out of business, so there's no support for this. But you really need to make staying current on your line of business application a priority. Spend the money. This is where you want to spend the money. I don't like spending my customers' money. I want to deliver value whenever possible. I'm a very value-driven kind of professional. I don't like throwing money at problems, but this is one where it's worth it. Keep your enterprise system, the one you run your business on, keep it current and keep support. And it just gives you the wiggle room you need in situations like this. So next time the other hardware might fail and then we're really screwed, I can't restore from a backup. So another thing that I learned, because they're running 2003, we use a Acronis backup. When we restored, it wouldn't boot. The first two machines that are newer, no problem. Long story short, what ended up happening is Acronis, for reasons I don't quite understand, replaces the HAL and NTOS kernel and NTKPAL, whatever, a couple of files in the boot section. And I don't know why they do this. I think for compatibility, it saw that's a virtual machine and is trying to keep it more compatible. But 2003 doesn't support hardly anything. I'm surprised Acronis supports 2003. It only half supports it. And then backing up has been a nightmare. It's the only tool we have that will let us back up 2003. I've tried everybody. It's one of the reasons we run it. But it wouldn't boot. So it would boot and freeze. And it took us forever to dig through it. And I finally just happened to notice that, wait a minute, why are there any files in System 32 that have today's date on it? It was the restore date. It's because Acronis modified it. So that's a major lesson learned. I was able to open up the flat file version of Acronis, and just look for the files, and sure enough, the HAL and the NTOS kernel were all different. They're all, like 2007 or whatever the last update was. Copied it, pasted it in, booted right up, and that got us back and running. That's what took us 3 days to get working, rather than the 1 day we got everything else up. And we otherwise would have hit 24-hour turnaround time, which is pretty good for a complete wipeout. But we got stuck in 2003. It's one of the many things that goes wrong when you have an operating system that's too old. So if any of you out there have an old system, make it a priority to upgrade it, whatever it takes, even if that means spending a lot of money on completely throwing away your current piece of software and getting that data however you can, however crudely, into a new system. You're better off dealing with the pain now, forcing the pain when you can deal with it, when you have an old system around to reference whenever you need, than later when it's gone and you can't even look things up. You can't even reference the old system because it's dead. Cause the failure so it's on your schedule. That's the advice. So that's a big lesson learned there. That would our backups. We always use a different password for our storage for our backups than we do anything else. It's a unique password. That saved our butts because we got a bunch of intruder lockout warnings on the NAS. They were trying hard to break our password. I'm sure they would have taken the Active Directory password and attempt to log in. I'm sure they tried that as one of their guesses. And the NAS is not part of the Active Directory. It's a unique security boundary. What we should do in the future is not only do that, but get that thing out of the production network and into its own subnet and behind a proper firewall. That would be another good thing. And as well as limit what IP addresses are allowed to talk to there and only what ports. So the better you can lock that thing down, the better. The more you can lock it down, the better. But another thing that saved us is Acronis is a cloud-based backup. So there was no information about how to reach that NAS. The password for that NAS was not saved anywhere in the operating system that was compromised. That saved our butt. That's one of those processes that I refuse to let go of. I will tell a customer, oh no, we're doing this. And I think we did. The password was kind of up to us anyway, so that wasn't the problem. But we got off the backup they used to use. We're retiring it. We don't use things like backup exec anymore, unless it's on a different server and we're pulling. Because again, if you get that server and you compromise it, you just open up backup exec and look at where the data is going. And the IP address of the NAS is right there. Oh, and look, the password is saved. I don't think it's that hard to break the saved passwords and get it and know how to log into your NAS. Didn't happen here because we replaced all of that. They used to have that with our Acronis system. It could be any cloud-based backup that works. It's just the idea that the credentials to your storage are not located on the machines you're backing up. And that machine has no direct way to get there. So compromising our systems got them no closer to the backup. Again, in a perfect world, or I should say in the future state, we're going to do this, the backup device would be on its own network and hidden, so it's harder to see from the bad guy's point of view. But, what we did worked. It was enough. We've used an annoyingly long password, completely different from anything else they have in their networks. It doesn't matter what else they guessed. It gave them no clues as to what this password was. It was long. It was weird. It was just a gobbledygook string of characters, and we had to copy and paste it. I don't even know what the password is. I copy and paste it out of our records all the time. It's too long to type. And that saved them. That is ultimately what saved this customer from having to pay the ransom. I think that is pretty much all of our relevant lessons learned. So, quick summation. Stay current on your operating system. Keep support on your vendor for any line of business apps or anything critical to the business. Two-factor on all remote access. Segment your network so that different systems are not immediately visible to each other, and only allow access as needed. And furthermore, furthering that point, doubling that point, if you will, for the backups. That goes double for the backups. Keep your backup storage protected and isolated, and make sure that the servers that you're backing up provide no clues to the attacker about how to access the backups. And two-factor everything, if I didn't say that already. That's pretty much it. The SonicWall breach, that's the kind of thing that will happen again. It's not SonicWall being bad. It's not like, go throw out your SonicWalls, get a Fortinet. Fortinet will make the same mistake next time. You know what I mean? You never know. So I think Fortinet's still a decent firewall, and two-factor would have solved this. Go change your passwords if you have a SonicWall. All of them, because you would understand that people have your config. So if you have a flat network, they're going to know about it. And that's pretty much it. All that I can think of for now. Thanks for watching the video. There's an extra long one. A lot of it is notes for myself, kind of validating some of our internal processes, and call to action for me to push some of my other clients harder. And I'm going to show them this video and talk about what happened and get them to sign off on things that they've been pushing back at us for a while. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you all in the next video.
Thanks for watching. We hope this video has provided valuable information to you. Be sure to share this video with other small business owners to spread the word about the importance of cybersecurity. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos like this. If you want more information about cybersecurity, visit us at www.cybervenger.com.